All right, thanks for being here. This is the December meeting of PPC, and we'll jump in. You have in your packet the minutes from our last board meeting. If there's any questions, if you have to address those. Otherwise, we just need a motion.
I move to waive the reading of the minutes and to approve them as presented.
I second that.
Okay. So we have a motion to waive the reading and approve as presented. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries. Okay, so the second item is, or the first action item, I guess I should say, is the modification to the policy. You'll remember that this is, there's copies of this is the contract return and retirement policy. So if you'll remember, I'm proposing that we add that section of the notice of retirement that would pay out the $400 stipend prior to separation from the district. So that might be, and remember we said we were going to be retroactive so that everybody got a crack at it one time. Okay, and so any discussion you want to have on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Is it just for retirement or is it for people separating from the district?
Just retirement.
Okay. Because there's someone who knows that she's probably going to separate, and she was told that she would get the 400, and I corrected her and I said, I think it's only for retirement.
Right. This is just retirees.
Okay.
The way I think of that is a thank you for your service to the district, and thank you for letting us know early enough to be able to replace your position.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, I had to leave early last time. What was the retroactive part?
So we have 4 individuals in the district who are already retired and are still working with us.
Okay.
And so, we tried to be clear that they've already retired, but we're going to include them if they've already retired, and then we're going to make it retroactive to this year, meaning with your vote, we're going to, in the motion, we want to apply it to this year's contract, because if we don't, then it would go on to next year's contract and nobody would get it this year.
Okay.
Because it wouldn't be valid until July of 25.
I understand.
Any other questions? Okay, so we would need a motion if that's what you want to do, we would need a motion to approve and to approve it for the 24-25 contract. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. I motion to approve it and for the amendment for the 2024 contract.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve as presented and apply it to the 24-25 contract. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries. Okay. Okay. Action item 3.2 is the December bonus. Remember, what I'm doing is I'm recommending to PPC that this body approve that we provide a $500 bonus on the December payroll for all those individuals who are under contract at that time. Okay? Any questions about that? Okay, we would just need a motion.
Move to approve the December $500 bonus.
I'll second that.
Is it? Okay. Wasn't sure which direction it came from because I wasn't looking. All right, so we've had a motion and a second to approve the $500 bonus to be paid on the December payroll. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries. Okay. I shouldn't really put the calendar in an action item. It should have been like as an informational item because it's really not an action item at this point. But you'll remember that we talked about looking at an alternative calendar. Alternative meaning from the traditional. And so this is just something I sketched out. This is just like a softball. Now it's time to start, taking it apart and what do we like, what do we not like. July, obviously, probably a not like.
Right.
Keep in mind, okay, so this is where this body kind of has to serve us, right? You remember, a lot of the calendar and a lot of budgeting is would you rather, right? And so keeping in mind that the number 1, 2, and 3 item in the calendar was 3 weekends at Christmas, 1 full week, at least a full week at Thanksgiving, and out by Memorial Day. This meets all of those. However, and you'll notice on the right-hand side, I've tried to summarize there, right? So quarters. Now I'm not really looking at it at quarters, but I mean, this is still in law. Quarters have to be a minimum of 40 days or a maximum of 50 days. So somewhere in there, right? The school year has to be 178 days or 1,068 hours. Now, it's actually 178 days plus 5 days of snow days. That's the minimum. Or 1,068 hours plus 30 hours. Okay. For us, one of the reasons we moved to an hourly based calendar this year with 178 days is that is 1,068 hours plus 30. It's actually plus 35. Okay. So we're meeting the legal requirements, right? Right now, that calendar. So I tried to color code it a little bit better this time so that it's visual, but the yellow areas would be student contact days. Okay? There are 173 of those days in there. Oh, and by the way, remember the teacher contract's 190. Okay? That's the other piece. So currently there are 173 student contact days. With hours, that is 1068. So right now, that calendar does not meet 1068 plus 30. Okay? There are currently, so the purple are what I'm calling right now just intervention assessment days, right? I mean, and now I still want to have a conversation with like Blair and find out about, and Caleb about the intervention schedule, right? And the testing schedule. That's what I really meant. The interim was what I was thinking. Interim testing schedule. Because I have some questions, like for instance, right? The Lost Learn says that within the first 30 days we have to screen our kindergartners. Well, theoretically, we could screen the kindergartners on the first 2 purple days.
That they'd already be in school for
30 days.
Yeah.
I think that's actually 25. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. So
This would be the 30.
but if they're all done by the second and third, then we've met the requirement.
So you're not talking about the screener that we do before they are placed in
No,
class?
I'm talking about the K2 screener or whatever that we have to do right now. That maybe they'll change from 30 days to second semester. But right, I mean, so these are just kind of things that we're sort of thinking around right now. You know, I personally, I mean, I would rather see us start like on the 4th and go past Memorial Day, but that was number, 1, 2, and 3 of the items. But we're still not, we still don't have enough days in there.
So these intervention assessment days are not student contact.
I don't know. That's a question that Craig and I have been batting that around.
Because if they were, then
Well, so I think the crux is going to be, are we going to make every kid come? Like in my brain, the idea was we'd only make the kids come who needed the intervention.
And that would be why we couldn't count it as student.
That's what I'm thinking. Now, if you said everybody's going to come and we're going to turn it into like intervention, enrichment, assessment, you probably then it counts.
what do you have to have, like 75% of your student body to count it as a student?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I've heard people say that, but I've never seen it in the law. We were kind of talking about that today too. And my desire really was to allow some of that time to be more, like if every kid wasn't coming, then I was thinking in my brain about, would that have to be? I mean, if it's contract days, it helps me because I don't have to pay anybody extra. But if it wasn't contract days, then people could, teachers could decide, look, this week I want this week off. I mean, I really need, versus I'm going to go and I'm going to help the with intervention for additional pay. I don't know what that looks like yet. But again, we may not be able to do that. This is just kind of a place to start. It's really just my thought process on paper right now. It allows us to get in. It also allows, I think, the day after parent-teacher conference to be done. Like we're not going to school that day.
Yeah, that's what this
And
is.
in my world, now here's the other thing. Those parent-teacher conference days right now in there are not student contact days. Right? Like I'm wondering, we've talked about around this table doing it a little bit differently. What would it look like if we said we're going to do parent-teacher conferences on that day from 12:30 to 6:30? Right? So teachers aren't coming in until 12:30 or 12, and we're running until 6:30 or whatever that looks like. Right? To try to get more parents and just do it differently. And do it all in one day. If they become student contact days, then we'll have to look and say, okay, well, where are we going to get our other, if we're going to do it 2 times. But again, it inhibits our ability to work with some of our parents who might be, going to work at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
We learned to bring cookies and hot chocolate last night, and I'll bring them out. Cookies and hot chocolate. There's that. There's like 300 parents.
That's what I heard.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
And books.
It's great.
And bingo.
And bingo. Yeah, bingo. Maybe bingo did that. I like the idea of getting parents more involved. I think that's what we need in order to make a change for our kids' education. And I think that's what we're lacking. Parent involvement. So any way to do that is going to be a step in the right direction. But I think it's just hard to get them to come to school and to get them involved in their grades and to make it a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to kind of decide how we're gonna do that before we can actually nail down a calendar. In order to figure out the
make that
days
decision.
and hours.
Well, I mean, so I'm gonna come back to this group and say, and this is not a year-round calendar, by the way. I did do some more investigation. A year-round calendar. You know, we talked about summer. On a year-round calendar, the limitation is summer break cannot be longer than 7 weeks. So if we were running a year-round calendar, we'd be starting July 14th.
We're not doing it. I don't wanna do that.
So it's not a year-round calendar. But I mean,
Yeah. Well, and I was just I like this, but I was kind of thinking, if you're looking at it, you don't want to start in July or this early. If you backed it off, because Thanksgiving break is here and then shortly after is Christmas break. Those are 2 breaks that your teachers have already. And usually it's like at the beginning of the school year, you see more burnout at the beginning. So I think if you just had one somewhere in September that was just like a little reprieve, you could remove one of these. And then that would scoot down.
But we do have September.
Yes, but I mean like the October one.
Yeah, she would
Because
remove.
especially that's a lot of breaks back to back for your kids going into Thanksgiving and Christmas, because
That's what I was
that's 4 weeks right there in 2 months that your kids are out of school already. So I think we could look at this and remove one of these maybe, and that would back off our start date.
to August 4th.
now keep in mind in the way the calendar sits right now, what you're removing is you're removing the intervention
Gotcha.
piece, and you're removing the
Professional development.
Yeah.
the professional development. Because honestly, once you get past that week of September, you don't have. There's not an adult.
Well, there's only
Day
2
off.
intervention days in September, so that would just be 2 instead of the 3.
And would that have us starting July 21st and doing? That would have teachers coming in July 21st.
If we were going to do before school
for PD.
PD.
Okay.
I'm not against that.
No, no, no,
I
I
can support that.
Don't we have to have at least 5 outside of the school year?
You have to by law you have to have 6 PD days.
Oh, okay.
And some schools say, we're going to provide all those. Some school districts say, you got 6 PD days, y'all go do them. I am of the camp of we're going to provide it.
Okay.
If it's good enough to be done, then we need to be doing it. So
there's 5 on here currently, and we would be responsible for one more, or one more would be built in that week before.
so I have designs on. I want to bring us CKH. I want to bring us Capturing Kids' Hearts. I think it's really good stuff. Everybody I've talked to says it's the best professional development they've ever done. And I think it would help us not only communicate to our community that we are taking seriously their concerns about the way kids treat each other, and I think it would help us in continuing to facilitate classrooms that kids want to be in, right? The trusted adult, that kind of thing. It's expensive and it's intense. We would need at least 2 days of preschool professional development, because I'm going to train every single adult in the district. Teacher, cafeteria staff, custodian, administrator, superintendent, everybody. That's going to cost me about $200,000 to do, but I think it'll be beneficial. So there's two, like somewhere, we gotta pluck 2 days to put in the front of that whole thing. Now it can, right now, one of them is gonna have to come from somewhere within there. Now here's the other thing, we could gain a day by going on Good Friday. Now that was less further down. I mean, it was an item that people talked about a year ago. That's why I put it on the list for this year. But it was less further down than some of these others.
Well, and it's that Friday right after.
Right
After spring break, yeah.
Yeah.
So we could look at capturing that day.
How far in between the trainings are you wanting to? Right, because you said it would be a 2-day training.
Yeah, the 2 days at the beginning of the school year.
Okay, so
See, that,
yeah.
and I haven't talked very well. I haven't talked much to principals on like what are they going to want a day, right? So
Yeah.
we kind of talked last time about how many days can we shave it down to, right? If the way I see it going into this year, if teachers would like to have a work day before school starts, then I think we're looking at 4 days beforehand. 2 for capturing kids' hearts and 1 for principals to do whatever it is they feel like they need to do, and 1 for teachers.
So that would cut out a district day too.
You mean somewhere in the yeah, I
In
mean,
those 4 days, we
yeah,
would
it cuts out a
we wouldn't have time to have one. Yeah. I mean, I'm fine with using that Good Friday for that. I'm fine with coming to school the Monday and the Tuesday of Thanksgiving break too. But like I said, a lot of teachers do travel for Christmas or for Thanksgiving, and they don't go anywhere for Christmas. So that's probably the people that voted to have the whole week.
It's gonna be a very long April and May.
That's what I was just
Yeah,
thinking.
because if
So
you do that,
we
it's the 2 whole months.
Say
straight.
teachers came on the 28th, and we did those 2 days of capturing the hearts, and then the principals had the day, and our first day with the kids was, well, I almost hate doing that, but like on that Friday where you have them for 1 day, that would remove these 2 and these 2. You could still do your assessment, but these could be student interaction days. We just scoot this yellow down to here, and these are pink would be 5 and 6, and then kids would come on the 7th.
Yeah, but before we make any decisions, we really need to find out about the intervention days, whether they count towards student contact or not.
Are we going to make every kid come?
Right. That's
I mean,
that's the question. Is what are you
So-
thinking?
Well, in my perfect world, the answer was no, because I wanted you to be able to work with not 100% of your kiddos, but maybe 60% of your kiddos who really need the intervention. If we want those days to count, then they've all got to come. I also wondered, like, could we look at it a different way? Could it be like everybody's coming, and then some kind of, I don't know, quote unquote reward for, you've gotten everything done.
Your improvement.
You can do school from home that day, or something.
Do you know other schools that are doing these intervention days?
No, I know Highland is doing a calendar like this. I don't know that they're doing the whole intervention days and that kind of thing. I think they have periodic breaks in between
Yeah,
there. But I can
somehow
find
they
out
got-
from Mr. Smith.
they were getting out like in May last year, didn't they? The 1st of May.
Probably.
Yeah, they got out like 2 or 3 weeks earlier than everybody else.
And I know, I mean, I do know one of the things they do is they go till, 4:30 or whatever.
Right.
To
That's what
get
it was.
those
They
extra
added minutes
hours.
to their day. Yeah.
I mean, that would, you can have school from home online today and then us just put something in our, our normal work day like we would do for a snow day or whatever for the kids that don't need the intervention,
I just have to find out
if that's legal.
if I mean,
Yeah.
because it's not I'm not talking about AMI days.
Right.
We're
It
just
would
talking
be
about
just school from home that day, basically.
for a select number
Yeah.
of kiddos.
When we get down to it.
The other thing we're talking about,
75%
administratively,
that needs to be
like
here.
Craig and I, is what kind of teeth do we have? Like, what if a parent says, "Oh, my kid's not coming. Everybody else can stay home. You can stay home too."
One of your kids absent.
Or my
Yeah.
kid doesn't need intervention, but they're coming to school anyway.
Yeah. They just don't like to read. They can't read. They just don't like to.
Well, I'm sorry, they need to perform at school. I'm
mean-
sure they do it for you at the dinner table every night, but they need to do it.
And that's where that's like what's our teeth in
Yeah.
that? I don't know.
Okay.
So
Things to think about.
I mean, and if we did require everyone to come, the ones that don't need the intervention, I don't know how many aides every campus has, but maybe they could work with
see,
the
I'm
ones
wondering.
that don't need the intervention and let us keep the ones that do.
I'm wondering, like for secondary, we're gonna do core stuff, and if you're not a core teacher, you're doing something else, right? We're not gonna run them through I wouldn't, right now I'm not thinking we would run secondary kids through a schedule or anything. It's like, okay, you need this for, a half a day maybe, or,
The other teachers could just do just some review things to just enrich.
I mean, again, it's secondary teacher. I mean, it should be standards based just like elementary school teachers, right? In my world. So if you can't, if you don't know your, multiplication table, I'm making something up, right? Then we're going to sit here and we're going to do that, and we're going to work on that, and we're going to, it becomes from a principal standpoint, it becomes, there is going to have to be some kind of movement, because most of the time, kids who need literacy help need math help too.
Yeah.
That's it's just at the secondary level, that's to be true, right? And so it's one of those things where, and they may need help in science. They may need help and there's going to be a difference between the kid who you're not getting it and you're just not doing your homework, right? Well, you're not doing your homework. That person can sit with any teacher, right? To do, look, you're going to sit here, you're going to do what you need to do until you get that done.
I feel like we could make that work and just require all the kids to come, and then just like in kindergarten,
work.
These two teachers are going to work with the kids that need literacy interventions. These two are going to do math, and these are going to do, other things. And
Yeah.
this
Secretary
teacher,
of
At the elementary level, it almost
I didn't
does.
mean it like that, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
yeah.
In a way, and then rotate even, if you have
Yeah.
to, when you see them starting to improve, just to mix it up.
And then upper levels, this teacher that teaches math will work on multiplication tables, and this one will work on forming paragraphs. And
Yeah, it becomes we're going to work on these standards, not
Yes.
we're going to work with our kids,
yeah, that's what
right?
it is.
Because that seems to, and you know what? I think you could get outside of the box, and you might be running multi-age classrooms for those 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
Because I got some, second graders who haven't gotten first grade, or I got third graders who haven't gotten first grade material yet. Okay, we're going to go over this first grade material. You wouldn't call it
Yeah.
first grade, but you're going to go over the standard, and if you need this standard, then you're sitting here.
So we kind of need to figure out exactly how we want to do that before we can completely.
Well, I don't know. I think you can say we're going to do this, then we're going to figure it out. Right?
Well, yeah.
As far as like what that's going to look like. I'm still having conversations with principals even today about, are we going to run the same schedule second semester that we ran first semester? Are we running enough are we running enough intervention minutes, and what does that look like, and how are we running those?
But I
Could it
just
be
wonder
run
how
differently?
successful, just doing that for 2 days.
Well, keep in mind, so
I mean, I know
this
it's targeted,
doesn't stop what I'm going to call tier 1 interventions, right? This doesn't
Right.
stop the classroom interventions that you're doing because we're in the midst of this standard and you're not getting this standard. So we're going to do some classroom interventions, and the idea is hopefully they get there. If they don't, then we have more of a tier 2 model, right? Because right now, I mean, and maybe we're not, I mean, you guys would have to tell me, but it seems to me like we're intervening so much that we're losing our ability to do tier 1 instruction time,
Yeah.
right? And that makes me nervous. I don't want to give up tier 1 instruction time. So part of the calendar, I would think, would help us to kind of figure out, okay, I don't think intervention goes away in the regular school day, but I also know that tier 2 and maybe tier 3 intervention needs to occur, but I don't want kids missing tier 1 instruction to get those interventions.
So would these days take the place of like after school tutoring?
Could be on top of it. I mean, and here, the way I would look at it, I mean, if we get into it, I mean, really there's roughly four opportunities within that calendar to do that intervention. If we do it for a year, and we're like, hey, this doesn't seem like it's helping, or, nobody needs intervention. I mean, I'm being facetious here, but nobody needs intervention, and we don't need to run an intervention type model. And the flip side of it, I like the opportunity to have, I've never had before school, I don't think I've ever had, as an administrator, the opportunity to do 2 days of professional learning, adult learning in the middle of the calendar.
I don't think
I kind of like that idea. I mean, personally, because I think it gives teachers and it gives principals a little more flexibility.
And we have to have 10 days, correct?
10 days of professional development, yes.
Or 6 professional and
That's
4
what-
contract.
Yeah.
Okay, did I miss
It's
that?
178 plus 2 parent-teacher conference days plus 10 PD days is the way it works. Now, is that right? Is that 190?
That's 100.
Okay.
Okay, so we have the 5 PD days, and we have 2 days before, that's 7, and then 8, 9. Am I missing?
Did I?
We have 5, 1, 2.
Yeah, 3, 4. Well, yeah. So that's why there's 5 on there now. 6, 7,
And then the parent-teacher conference days.
8, 9.
Where's the 10th?
Well, no, it's 7 because there's the other 2. There's those 2 days there. It's not on there. That's what I'm saying. We're
There's not a
missing.
10th day.
3
Yeah,
days
we're
aren't on
missing
Three
at
days.
least.
I have 9 days.
I only see 5 professional development, 2 parent-teacher
That's
conference.
7.
Where do you
Oh,
see
the other 2 would be before
The two would be
school
before,
started.
well, 3,
The building day.
because one would have to be a building day.
That's right, I didn't write that down. Okay, so it would be a 2 for the
Mhm.
capturing kids' hearts,
Right.
and then 1 building
Yes,
day.
thank you.
Sorry,
That's right.
I didn't write that down. Okay, I knew I was missing something. Okay. Had you confused too, didn't
Did you?
I? Sorry.
You're fine. You're fine. Okay, so I guess I'm gonna ask, does the if we're looking at the first week in September or the second full week in October as moving that, those student contact days out of July down. Let's start here. Where do you want parent-teacher conferences to be?
I mean, for us that teach little ones, having it this early.
Well, keep in mind,
Well,
we never
that's
started
right.
that early
That's
before.
right. That's true.
So after,
I mean, because we're still learning just routines.
how many weeks do you want parent-teacher conferences after the beginning of school? Let's do it that way.
Yeah, because they don't have to be 9 weeks after, does it?
I would think at least 6.
Well, I think this year we tried to keep it right after the progress reports came out so that we would have time to talk to parents before the end of the 9 weeks.
So
And
that'd be 5.
yeah,
5 weeks
so-
for the progress report.
so that puts it right after that progress report coming out.
So that would put it the 11th. Is that what you're saying?
No, I think right here, the way it is scheduled, that would be, assuming that we didn't move back a week. Because our progress reports, if this stays the same, the progress reports would be,
Right.
Come out on
grades
the
would be at the
29th.
end.
Right now, parent-teacher conferences are at 5 weeks after the start. So if you move back and 5 weeks is where you want it to be, then yes, it's
It
going to
would
move
be
back
the
to the
11th.
11th. If 5 weeks is not enough because maybe we're still working on, getting them to stand in line, then we can move it back farther.
I mean, I think 5.
I think
weeks
5
would be
would-
fine.
Yeah, because then they can see earlier how they're doing, and then they can hopefully the next 3 or 4 weeks work with
Where it
them,
needs to be.
and by the time report cards come.
Do we like the idea? I'm sorry, Charlotte.
No, I agree. Then we can learn about the kids too, because sometimes you don't meet the parents on the first day of school. Then you're getting that information about the kid too. I like
Do we
that.
want to hold on to the day after parent-teacher conference being a day off?
That's never bothered me
I don't care.
coming that day.
Yeah.
Well, and if it's a
Okay.
day-long thing,
That would be different.
right.
Right. You're only coming in at 12 to 6.
Well, and that would be kind of
Basically.
weird to have a day off in the middle of the week and not have the next day off. Having a day off, because you said there would not be. That's not a student contact day. The 4th.
Not right now. I mean, it can be, right? I mean, that's, again, it sort of depends on, how far out of the box are we willing to climb.
Could we do half a day
Could.
and then the rest of the day be parent-teacher conferences? We used to get out early for parent-teacher conferences. Do y'all remember?
What if we served lunch to everyone and then got out at?
Okay, so let me,
Yeah, we used to get out like at 1 for parent-teacher conference days. That was years ago.
so how open would we be to getting a day and a half of contract work out of the way on a parent-teacher conference day? Right? Like teaching half day and then doing an additional 6 hours of parent-teacher conference,
I like that.
right? That gets you a
I'm
day
fine
and a
with
half in a day. And then you do that again second semester. Now you got
Another
3
day.
days and
Days
2
right there.
days.
Yeah. That sounds good.
Is that was still the Friday being off or
Mhm.
us coming in?
Yeah, I mean, I think that'd be if I'm gonna work
Till
Oh, work.
6 o'clock.
Yeah.
from dawn to way late, then yeah, I want the day
I
off.
will still be here on that day.
I mean, we
Us and the coaches will, but that's just what we do for a living. I like that a lot, actually, doing the day and the half and into the 3. I love it. I think that's good.
I forget why we quit getting out.
Well, we were told there for so long that, I mean, because it didn't get put into the calendar and you had to. we
Well,
were
it
told
was,
that
it was in our calendar that those would be early days. Had to
I
do
saw
something with the
coming
minutes.
out,
I think it had to do something with the minutes.
minutes and hours and.
And Mr. Blackston, he would bank our minutes and then let us out early. I can't remember if it was both parent-teacher conference days or if it was just in the spring that we got out early on that day. I can't
It
remember.
was both.
I think it was too, so. I don't know. But then we would have to come to school the next day.
But all of a sudden it just stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then are we still, I'm gonna circle back. Are we at a point where we want to consider that October as, well, okay, if we're bringing in everybody, then they're all student contact days at this
Right.
point, right? Let's go back to that. So, are we okay with leaving the 3 and the 2 professional development days?
So when you say we're bringing in everybody, it would be for those 3 days.
Yeah, all
Yeah,
the
and then
kids,
they would
those
be
become
all-
student contact days.
Yeah.
and then-
If we did that on 13, 14, and 15, and we did it again on 8 and 9, then that would do away with the July early start, right? If we made the 13, 14, 15, and then January 8th and 9th student contact days.
Well, all the purple would be student contact days, wouldn't it?
'Cause they
So
would
that
all
would
be
But
there.
that's what she's saying. Then we wouldn't have to start
Right.
July 28th.
Right, but that would also get us out earlier at the end, because that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 10 days that we would even get out earlier in May.
If we kept July, if we didn't
No,
do July.
no, we could still
If you
start
just-
August
yeah.
the 4th, and we would still get out. Because right now the purple days are not student contact days.
But if we changed them back to it, then that would take this
I mean, and
out.
I like the idea of doing you could do STEM activities with the kids that need enrichment, that are, I like having all the kids here.
Okay, well then what I'll do is I'll redo it with assuming that the purple days are gonna be everybody's here. And then we'll deal with that.
Could we still possibly, would you look into possibly being able to reward some of those that do not need to be here and letting them have those, work at home days?
Well, that's what she was talking about, having the ones that don't need it to come anyway and go somewhere else to do STEM activities or something fun that the teachers plan. And, just designate who's going to work this and who's going to work with the intervention. That
Well,
would,
and I think that's a legitimate question that maybe might be best presented to non-core teachers. So I'm going to look over here.
That's what
right?
I was like, I've been
Would you-
racking ideas in my brain
Well,
this whole time.
It's almost like, would you rather be involved in helping and supporting literacy and math, or would you rather support like STEM enrichment kinds of things? Because that's really what it comes down to, right? If everybody's here, it's probably STEM enrichment.
Yeah.
If not, then we're going to use everybody for academic
Yes.
enrichment.
I would say STEM enrichment, because then that's where I was trying to think. If you had, I don't know, I just have a bunch of ideas going through my brain right now of what we could do, because that was my first thought is band and coaches and all of us who don't all have.
teach them how to balance a checkbook.
Well, and
Well, but I'm thinking more like, I'm going to start out. If you're coaching, then guess what? I'm putting you in a room with all the kids who need to do nothing but homework to catch up, because
Yeah.
they don't necessarily need the
The
standards,
they don't
but
need one of the core
need-
teachers
And
right
I could
there.
see that working really good in the secondary level. because
Yes.
There are kids that don't have that home support, so get caught up with your missing
Yes.
assignments.
Because we're already
Finish
doing
those
that.
essays, finish
Yes.
those projects, finish
Yes.
those.
I mean,
And when
we're-
they get that done, then they might go. to
Because
doing
guess when they're doing
enrichments.
that right now at the junior high is during lunch detention,
Right.
Yeah, or during their study hall.
right? So
Are those
I don't even
days,
think they do
one of the
it here.
questions is gonna be, are those days still going to look the same as far as, will teachers have their prep? Will there be lunch and recess at the same time? Will they, you know,
Scheduling.
I think that'll just get down to your building principal, figuring out what he wants, and then asking for teacher input to schedule.
I mean, I would tell you that as a building principal, well, really, I didn't deal with that as a building principal. I dealt with that more as an assistant principal in another district, and the commitment I would make to somebody is, we'll get you a plan. It may not be when your plan, like if your plan is from 8:15 to 9 o'clock or 9:15 every day, it may not be then.
yeah.
We may be doing it at 2 o'clock today because I need you here, here, and here. But yeah, I mean, and there are, and there's no judgment on this. There are some teachers that are more concerned about that than others, right? They're just, I mean, there just are. And so, if a building principal, needs to work with a teacher to ensure that that teacher feels like they're getting what they need, then yeah, that would be my expectation. There are going to be some teachers who are less concerned about that than others, though.
So
Get it.
if the pink days are not staying in necessarily all in order, would there be a possibility of doing one intervention day every 3 weeks or something on Fridays, so that they're not all bunched together?
Yeah, 'cause
That'd
I
be
know-
more spaced out and more opportunities to catch more kids.
Or at the least, take a day away from these two that have 3 in a row and move it maybe to March.
right, or April.
Or, yeah.
There are those opportunities. I would be hesitant to drop them on a Friday or a Monday.
That's what I was gonna say, yeah.
I'd be more likely, if we're gonna do one, Wednesday.
Wednesday.
We're gonna do it in the middle of the week when nobody can go anywhere else without giving up, more.
If you're gonna do 2, do like you've got Tuesday and Wednesday. That way we have Monday with them, and then we're gonna be reminding them this is what's going on tomorrow, or whatever, or one a month, or 2. I don't really know about November and December because we're gonna be missing, but yeah, I feel like they.
We could. Part of the thought process too was do you need, as a teacher, do you need enough time to go through, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, however many standards, and then now we've kind of jumbled those up, right? And now since I've got every kid coming, everybody might not need help on the same standard, right? And so now we can kind of divvy those out because we have multiple standards that we've covered in this last 5 weeks, for instance, right?
Yeah.
Do you get caught if we did it once every week or once every 2 weeks have we covered enough material to make that time the most efficient and valuable? I don't know, right? I'm really asking that question. And that might be something you want to sit and think about, but
Well, it'll look different for each building. When
It might,
you sit
yeah.
with the principals and what's going to be best for the kids in
With
that.
the
Because the elementary is going to
levels.
look completely different
Yeah,
than the
we
junior
spend a
high.
lot
And
longer on the standard.
And I would be
Yes.
hesitant to put the intervention days down in April and May because you're gonna want those interventions done before state's testing.
Testing.
Well, and another thing, starting in January, you're gonna have Alpha 21 testing, and then in February, you're gonna begin all your other, but if we do, if we set 23rd, 24th, 25 aside for, Alpha or the 8th, it might be that we need to do that.
well, and that's the other thing that
So they're
the other
not
thing that
missing
Craig and I
class
were talking
times.
about is, can those days be used for, some of the assessments and some of the
You know, I know that there'll be an interim probably in October. That 13, 14, 15 might need to be those interim days. I mean, that's definitely something to think about.
or half in, maybe the morning is interim and the
Yes.
afternoon is
Yes. 'Cause they don't test that.
intervention
Yes.
and enrichment or remediation or whatever that
But
looks
if you're
like.
only gonna do half a day, then you could do more days, cause it would only be half, you've got 2 here, we could do 2 more this month and just do half a day.
What would you do with the other half?
Well, like I said,
Regulars.
even the first time would be testing, but the other regular
Yeah.
schedule, and then
You could. And honestly, there's nothing. I mean, if as a building, I would think, even as a building, if you all wanted to get together and say, okay, let's look at doing something different within here. I mean,
we have these days to
If
work
these
with. How are we gonna do
days,
it?
if these days are student contact days and they're not going to look like our normal schedule, would we still go to like our activity classes, art, music?
Or would the activity teachers
PE?
be doing the
I know they
with
would be.
the ones that
Yeah,
need
so they, okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
asking earlier, because that's when we,
enrichment.
yeah.
and I would, I guess I would want to include the activity teachers in that conversation.
Yeah. But she's right, they would need maybe their own group of kids, so they wouldn't be having regular class.
Because, I would probably argue that, you need, I think the rules say they have to have like music once a week or whatever, right? Don't really say how long. It doesn't, there's no, recess is the only one that says this is how long it's got to be. The others just say once a week. So, I think you could get creative, is my point, and kind of do some of that. So, all right. Well, I will make some of these changes, and then we'll bring something else back, or I'll send it to you or whatnot. We'll take a look at it again. Okay. Anything else y'all want to talk about?
I don't know if this is for this time or not, but I was told to ask about the leads and master teachers,
Mm-hmm.
and what is it, 3rd grade that has to have?
Yeah. So Sean and I have kind of been talking about that.
Yeah, yes.
And
I don't know if we need to do that here or not.
well, I don't. What I told, one of the things, and I think we've talked, this is what I'll say, because I think we've talked about it in this group, right? My desire is to find things that, I gotta be able to afford them, but find places where we can provide stipend, financial benefit to teachers. That would be one of those places. The leads and the master teacher. Now, elementary has the added pressure of kiddos in 3rd grade. If they're not proficient, if they're not performing at grade level, then they can't, technically they're supposed to be held back, right?
And they have to be placed into a
Right.
master teachers.
They're supposed to be, yeah, that's level 1. And then if there isn't a master teacher, then it goes down to a teacher who's in the top quartile of the merit pay thing, whatever number that's called. I can't remember off the top of my head. And then if that's not the case, then there's like a stair step of 4 levels. And then, so there was some conversation, about asking, well, what about getting an entire grade level certified? And so the conversation was there right now, there's a cost to that, right? There's ways that teachers can find to pay for those. I think it's like $2,000 is what it's been. We've had teachers who have gotten grants through like a co-op and that kind of thing to do that. And so there are those opportunities. One of my thought processes is, if the district's going to pay to get the certification, then I don't know that you'd come back and say we're going to offer a stipend for that because we've already paid for the certification, right? I liken it to a master's degree. We don't, a district doesn't say, well, we're going to pay for your master's degree and then we're going to start paying you for the master's degree, right? And so, we kind of batted around some thoughts, ideas around that, on what that looks like. I have asked, is there going to continue to be grant funds available? People are sort of wishy-washy on whether or not that's the case. But that's not just for elementary. That would be for anybody. So at least that part of the conversation, I think, is for here. And then we can,
So
we can talk
do
about
other grades not have to have, is it just third grade or fifth grade?
Just third
seventh
grade.
Just third grade.
third grade going into fourth grade. If they're not, in essence, the idea behind the act was if they're not on grade level at the end of third grade, then you will keep them until they're on grade level in third grade. Which would be another year. And then you would
Now, I know some
I mean,
states,
ideally, they're supposed to get it in another year, but
right,
some
some
of them
states
just
that
aren't.
have that in place where if they don't pass their test or whatever, they can't advance, they do summer school
Well,
to
and,
allow those kids to
and-
be able to go on. Is that, I don't
well,
know.
yes, in fact, under the law, the elementary will have to do summer school this year. Elementary will have to do summer school this year.
And won't that affect whether or not we can retain them in kindergarten through second? Because what if they get retained in one of those grades and then they're still not?
Well, that's one of the
Because
exceptions.
we don't do it twice. over
Right,
there.
that's one of the exceptions. So there are multiple
Okay.
exceptions. Of all, I will tell you this, of all the, if we were using last year's data, so this year's fourth graders, last year's data to make that assessment, once you take out all the kids who are exempt, because kids are exempt if they've been held back before, kiddos are exempt if they're on an IEP, kiddos are exempt if they are ELL and have been in the country less than 2 years. There's like 3 or 4 different ways. So when I applied that to the elementary school, this year's data with this year's kids, 18.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
18 is the number
That would have been.
that would have been retained for not meeting those. Now, and the conversation that I've had is, okay, even a great teacher, you got 18 kids who need that kind of support.
Yeah, that's not fair to one person.
You're right. I mean,
or to the kids because they need the extra support and the teacher can't.
at my experience, it's usually because like we've done some things sort of like that. I mean, like at the high school level, I've had 35 and 36 kids in a class before. Teachers can do that if they agree. And I had a gentleman who he was trying to pay for an engagement ring. He said, "Yep, I'll do it. I'll do it for the year." And by like March, he's like, "I'm not doing this again. I mean, I'll finish the year, but I'm never doing this again." And that's the way. And we don't want to create that environment, right? But the answer is 18. It's 1 FTE.
So summer school for elementary, how long would that be? Because I know that summer school at high school is what,
I'll have to go
2
back.
weeks?
I'll have to go back
3 weeks?
into the. I'll have to go back into the Learns Act because I think it says in there.
Well, that
It says in
makes
there
sense.
who has to go and how long they have to be there.
So we'll have summer school and summer camp, and if they're at the same
Lots of
time,
summers.
you can't do both.
So, and we may have to look at providing transportation.
Not because they do during the summer camp, but they have all the grants. And things.
So, all right. Any other questions? Okay, we just need a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right. So moved.